Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. And we begin as we usually do with the economy. China has issued approximately 2.8 trillion yuan in new local government debt, quote, ahead of schedule, end quote, in 2025, according to a tally by the state-run financial media outlet 21st Century Business Herald. This early issuance aligns with the country's push for a more proactive fiscal policy, as outlined in the annual Central Economic Work Conference in December of last year, which we covered at the time. The move allows local governments to accelerate infrastructure projects, boost consumption, and stabilize regional economies amid financial strains. That's the plan, at least. As we have seen in recent months, some local authorities have used funds earmarked for certain programs and then funneled them into paying off hidden debt. For example, as we discussed earlier this week, even some schools have seen their funds reallocated to cover hidden debt. In one case, a Chinese financial media outlet Caixin Reporter found that local schools couldn't even afford to keep the lights on due to funds allocated to them being redirected into covering fiscal strains with the local government. Many provinces, including Guangdong, Jiangsu, and Zhejiang, have already utilized their front-loaded debt quotas, with some reaching at least 60% of last year's total bond issuance as of this year to date. China's finance ministry has emphasized the importance of optimizing fiscal expenditure, focusing on improving livelihoods, expanding domestic demand, and fostering new growth drivers. With a total of 4.62 trillion yuan in new local government bonds set for this year, the front-loading portion of 2025 reflects a strategic effort to generate early economic momentum that the country is in desperate need of. However, financial constraints remain a concern for many provincial governments, prompting stricter regulations to manage debt issuance. To mitigate hidden debt risks, some provinces have explicitly prohibited state-owned enterprises from assuming government financing tasks. This early debt issuance strategy highlights the government's balancing act, stimulating the economy while maintaining fiscal prudence, a balance which hasn't been managed well in recent years. Meanwhile, the other side of China's structural crises coin is the property sector. In a piece published today called China's Property Crisis Enters a Dangerous New Phase, US-based Bloomberg writes that after years of watching property developers collapse under mounting debt, Beijing officials have intervened in late January to rescue China Vanke or Vanke Co., one of the last major real estate giants still standing. Facing a record annual loss of $6.2 billion and plummeting bond prices, Vanke found itself in the center of an unprecedented government intervention. Officials in Shenzhen, where the developer is based, stepped in to take operational control and secure funding. We covered this at the time. While markets sighed in relief, the Bloomberg authors argue the move underscored a sobering reality. That is that China's real estate crisis, already responsible for nearly $160 billion in distressed debt, is worsening. Signs of distress are now everywhere, the authors argue. Home sales, which briefly showed signs of recovery, have stalled despite multiple rounds of government stimulus. Chinese banks have largely halted lending for real estate projects outside major cities like Shanghai. Meanwhile, international creditors are losing patience as more debt restructuring deals unravel. At least a dozen developers, including once giants like Country Garden Holdings Co., now face liquidation petitions. The crisis is rippling beyond mainland China too. In Hong Kong, New World Development Co., one of the financial hub's leading real estate firms, has been forced to sell assets and mortgage prime properties to offset mounting losses. The developer now expects its first loss in 2 decades as declining demand from Chinese home buyers and tourists hits the city's economy hard. Without decisive action from Beijing to restore home buyer confidence and stabilize the $15 trillion property market, the deepening crisis could further deter foreign investment and weaken China's economic position. Huan Li, co-founder of Forest Capital Hong Kong Limited, expressed to Bloomberg, quote, "China's regulatory rescue efforts are sometimes cautious, like giving a band-aid after a knife wound," end quote, adding, quote, "They don't act until the worst moment, but when that comes, it may be too late. With Vanke, the support is positive, and we need to see more of it," end quote. While Beijing has pledged to stop the market's decline, home prices have already dropped by about 30% from their 2021 peak. Developers are struggling under a tightening credit environment. Vanke alone faces $4.9 billion in bond payments by 2025, and investors worry that a default could further destabilize confidence in state-controlled developers like Poly Developments and China Overseas Land and Investments Limited. Beijing's strategy so far has been to focus on delivering completed homes rather than bailing out struggling firms. State-backed companies have been encouraged to buy unsold units, mortgage rates have been slashed, and down payment requirements have been reduced. However, the efforts have failed to spur demand. Home sales fell 3.2% in January year-over-year, according to China Real Estate Information Corp. Economists warn that this piecemeal approach may not be enough, with Zhu Ning, a faculty fellow at Yale University, expressing, quote, "What the government has done is encouraging for a start, but the measures are not sufficient and are not happening fast enough," end quote. Adding, quote, "What I really worry about on the housing market is that the expectations have been pessimistic," end quote. With Chinese lawmakers set to meet in March, all eyes are on Beijing for a more aggressive and coordinated economic support package. Without it, China's housing crisis threatens to become a long-term drag on economic growth, investment confidence, and consumer spending, precisely at a time when China's economy is facing crises both home and abroad. Next up, the Paris AI Summit is being held this week. While the focus of the event is on cooperation in the AI field, the United States and China remained at odds, with export controls, national security, and technological sovereignty dominating discussions. US Vice President J.D. Vance took a firm stance while speaking at the event, warning against partnerships with authoritarian regimes without explicitly naming China. In his address, Vance emphasized the need to protect American AI and semiconductor technologies from theft and misuse. Quote, "We will safeguard American AI and chip technologies from theft and misuse, work with our allies and partners to strengthen and extend these protections and close pathways to adversaries attaining AI capabilities and threaten all of our people," end quote. He also cautioned against what he characterized as predatory technology practices, urging nations to consider the risks of engaging with heavily subsidized foreign tech. China, however, presented a different vision. Vice Premier Zhang Guoqing reaffirmed China's willingness to work with global partners to ensure AI's development and security, advocating for a, quote, "community with a shared future for mankind," end quote. Despite this, former Chinese Vice Foreign Minister Fu Ying expressed skepticism over US-China collaboration, citing geopolitical strains as a significant obstacle. She noted in a closed-door session, quote, "Many are not optimistic about US-China AI collaboration, and the tech world is increasingly subject to geopolitical distractions," end quote. The geopolitical divide was further evident in the refusal of the US and the UK to sign the summit's joint declaration on AI governance. According to the UK-based Financial Times, this decision dealt a setback to French President Emmanuel Macron's push for global AI regulation. Vance defended the decision, emphasizing that the US would prioritize its own AI development with American-made chips, arguing that international regulatory frameworks should foster innovation rather than restrict it. The stakes in AI and semiconductor technology remain high, with AI's national security implications being a recurring theme. As highlighted by a recent US-based RAND report, advanced chips are crucial to military and strategic advancements, including missile simulations and satellite analysis. The US sees restricting exports as a necessity, while China continues its push to try and catch up. While the summit sought to promote international dialogue, it ultimately reflected the deepening fractures in the global AI landscape. Indeed, our last development for today continues on this very theme. But just quickly, if you're getting some value from today's episode of China Update, as always, I have a big favor to ask. That is just to hit that like button. Liking, sharing, and subscribing are the only ways in which the channel can grow and be shown to new people. Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are also in the description. For those who want to help keep China Update financially sustainable, I rely primarily on your support, subscriber support, to keep the channel going. So this is also a tremendous help. Thank you so much, everybody, for the ongoing support. And finally for today, let's discuss two very different technology companies operating in either side of the Pacific. A TikTok deal may be taking shape. US-based Wall Street Journal, in a report over the weekend, argues that several major US technology giants, including Oracle, Amazon, and Microsoft, have reportedly shown interest in acquiring TikTok's American operations. Meanwhile, TikTok's leadership is proposing an alternative plan, a US-based joint venture that would ensure data security while keeping the country under its current ownership structure. Adding to the interest around this topic, US President Donald Trump has floated the idea of a US sovereign wealth fund taking a stake in TikTok. While the feasibility of such a fund remains unclear, Chinese officials have indicated openness to a deal that would include American investment into the platform. Trump has enlisted Vice President J.D. Vance to oversee negotiations, leveraging his venture capital background. His public engagement of a potential bidding war has only fueled speculation, with figures like Elon Musk and Oracle's Larry Ellison emerging as possible buyers. The clock is ticking, however, no pun intended. TikTok faces an April 5th deadline to resolve its ownership issues, or risk being banned within the United States. While Trump's latest maneuver gives the app hope, the path forward remains murky. Whether through a sale, a government-backed investment, or a renegotiated data security plan, TikTok's fate is now closely tied to both Washington policies and global trade negotiations. Meanwhile, Apple has partnered with Alibaba to introduce artificial intelligence features to iPhone users in China, marking a significant step in the company's strategy to maintain its competitive edge in the region. The collaboration is currently awaiting regulatory approval from Chinese authorities before it can be implemented. According to reports, Apple and Alibaba have been working together to develop AI-powered functionalities tailored to Chinese users. This initiative aligns with Apple's broader effort to enhance its software offerings and counter declining sales in China, where local competitors like Huawei and Vivo continue to gain market share. A person familiar with the matter, speaking to US technology media outlet The Information, confirmed that Apple and Alibaba have submitted their AI co-development for review by China's cyberspace regulator. This suggests that the partnership has already made significant progress and could soon become an official feature for Apple devices in the country. Apple's upcoming China Developer Conference, scheduled for the 25th of March in Shanghai, has fueled speculation that the new Apple intelligence features may be announced at the event. If approved, the partnership with Alibaba could provide Apple with a stronger foothold in China's highly regulated and competitive technology market. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a good Tuesday, and I will see you all tomorrow.